Stocks recovered just a bit today after tanking yesterday on that inflation report where it jumped 8.3% last month, more than the 8.1% analysts were expecting. It comes as the White House continues celebrating passage of the Inflation Recovery Act, or Inflation Reduction Act, I should say. Let's talk about it now with our friend Jack Kalavritinos, Republican strategist, former HHS official, who's here. Oh, I'm leaned into your shot there, Jack. I'm sorry. The three cameras here, and I leaned into the wrong one. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
How's everything?
Everything is great. Yeah.
Yesterday, we saw at the White House they were celebrating the Inflation Reduction Act on a day where, if you're looking at your 401k, it was not the best kind of day because we learned these inflation numbers. And a lot of people said, what is the White House celebrating when you have this event at the White House when people are hurting right now?
Yeah, I mean, having been in different White Houses, the Bush and Trump White House, I mean, you have big events after or when you sign a big bill. And this is part of their election year strategy, is to sign a really big spending bill. It was the reconciliation bill until it was renamed something that really has nothing to do with inflation reduction. So it was very ironic that inflation shoots up on the day that they celebrate the Inflation Reduction Act.
Every time we get into a midterm year, people say, what's going to draw voters to the polls in November? And consistently, it's always about these pocketbook issues. It's about, are people doing well? I mean, think back to President Reagan. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? But Democrats seem to think that it's going to be social issues. And you can make the argument that when you look at Kansas, you look at that abortion bill that did not pass when the voters went to the polls. But you're looking at other poll numbers right now, and it is not a cakewalk for Democrats this year.
No, they are trying to do that. But the other thing, sadly, that they're trying to do, sadly, I say, because I've never really seen the party that I associate with ever do this, which is accuse your opponents of not even being for democracy. So in my mind, it's less abortion than it is trying to basically demonize the 80 million people and a lot of the candidates. So I think that's a losing strategy because I don't think that people are going to buy into that. But without that, they don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to energy prices, inflation generally, and just what people are feeling in terms of the wrong direction of our country.
You're talking about President Biden's speech a couple of weeks ago in Philadelphia where he was talking about democracy, where he used the term MAGA Republicans here, tried to draw a line between what he believed were traditional Republicans and MAGA Republicans, but there are a lot of people that looked at that and said it was the wrong tone to set.
It was really, as a Republican and talking to my friends, many of whom would never put on a red hat, even if they pulled the lever for him, found it to be one of the single most distasteful speeches ever, called the sort of red sermon speech. And on 9/11 of all days, there were people, Hillary Clinton is one, who sort of took this solemn day to score political points about we have to be careful about those in this country who are against freedom, where it was a very veiled attempt at hitting at political opponents.
There are people, when you look at that, saying, well, what is wrong with pointing out January 6th and drawing that line there? And that seems to be what Democrats are saying. The president was referring to January 6th and not necessarily demonizing people, but yourself included, many people walked away saying that wasn't the tone that was set.
It wasn't. And I mean, if he had just said those people that stormed the Capitol and those that attacked federal buildings, you know, in 2020, all of those Americans, whether Republican or Democrat, whether left or right, people are wrong. We are in the middle and we are for democracy. But instead, no, it really was painting with his broad brush his political opponents. And that's just sort of hitting below the belt. That's not what we do in America. Let's
talk about the midterms. They are coming up. They're about 54 days away right now. When you look at the House, if passed as president, Republicans would take over the House. The Senate, it seems Mitch McConnell has said it might be a tougher road to walk there. As you look at this from your perspective, what's your takeaways?
I mean, history does matter, and you referenced that. And I wrote down here the Clinton first midterm and the Obama first midterm. I think people forget this, that Clinton lost 8 Senate seats and 54 House seats. And for Obama, it was 12 Senate seats and 64. No one in their right mind is talking about Democrats losing 8 or 12. But I think it is very much within reason to lose a few and therefore lose complete control of Congress.
And there was some talk today about what Nancy Pelosi's role would be. She was asked whether or not that she would stick around. She said, well, we have to win first, which clearly, but I mean, you have to win. You can't necessarily keep measuring for drapes at this point or stay in in office. But regardless, the House, you've had so many Democrats retire. And to be fair, you had a lot of Republicans retiring too in the 2018 midterms.
Yes.
But it seems that, why do you think we're seeing that switch over?
I mean, when people see the handwriting on the wall, and often when they've been in Congress, they've been in the majority, there's nothing worse. And I worked for Congressman Mike Bilirakis when he was in the minority from Florida.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than being in the minority in the House. And so I think members that have been in there a long time will see, well, if we're going to lose, and we're going to probably lose next time too, why stick it through? Why not go home or become a lobbyist or whatever? I do not see her staying. I see her resigning and becoming ambassador to the Vatican or another plum job that might still be open for her.
If the Democrats hold on to the Senate, do you think Mitch McConnell sticks around?
I actually do. I mean, this is what he does best. He helps to elect Republicans and sort of run the Senate. But it will be a fight.
When you look at Mitch McConnell, and I think regardless of how people feel, he goes down as one of the most consequential Senate leaders of all time. When you look at what he did for the judiciary, which is something that Republicans are very passionate about, and that was something that he helped to shepherd through, whether it was the Supreme Court nominations or many of these other lower court nominations over time.
No, you're right, especially on the judiciary, like you said. But, there are a lot of candidates out there that he hasn't been that supportive of, and he has a huge PAC and has been supporting candidates. So, I mean, we're going to see. But I look at people like Laxalt in Nevada. Yeah. He's someone that is establishment, Reagan's, the son of Reagan's treasurer, Paul Laxalt, and at the same time supported by Trump. So there's some interesting candidates out there that aren't only the ones that, sort of we all talk about.
Man, we can keep talking about this for a while, but I'm being told we're out of time. Jack, good to see you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And the Final Five is back right after this.